Hi there, this is Patricia from patriciafenty.com, and today I have a really fun tutorial for this granny square Christmas tree, and I'm making it with a few different size yarns. This is a number 4 medium weight yarn, and then this here is a crochet cotton, and this is embroidery floss. And then the big tree here, I'm making that by just making the whole square bigger by adding extra rounds of the granny square stitch. So it's all the same pattern, just this one has more rows, different size yarn and hooks. This one here, I'm going to use this to make a garland to go with my Christmas stockings from last year. And this one, super fun, it is actually a gift bag. And I show you how you can put these buttons in the back, and the buttons just button up here in the chain 1 spaces. And so you can use this for soft gifts like scarves, socks, mittens, hats, underwear, things like that. Or if you want, you could make a little pillow foam to put in there, and then you could have a little Christmas tree pillow. And so I'll insert a better picture of this. And so let's get started. All right, let's talk supplies. So for these trees here, I'm just using a number 4 medium weight yarn and a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. You want a darning needle and some scissors. And the yarns that I'm using here, this cream color, this is Craft Smart Off-White. The red is Red Heart Soft in Wine. The dark green here is Bernat Premium in Evergreen, and then the outside light green is Bernat Super Value in Forest Green. Of course, you can use any yarns that you want, any color combination that you want. And then if you want to go with the smaller trees, this one here, I used the crochet cotton, and I don't know the names of these colors. I got them from a thrift store, but you know, any combination of crochet cotton, it's a number 10. For that, I used a 1.75 millimeter crochet hook. And then for this one here, this is where I used the embroidery floss, and I thought that turned out really cute. And for that one, I used a 2 millimeter crochet hook. And again, I got these embroidery flosses at the thrift store. So you can use any size yarn you want, or cotton thread, and then of course make them any size you like. So you can use any granny square pattern you like. This is my small tog granny square, and I'm using this one because it matches so nicely with the stockings that I made last year, and I used the same granny square for that. And then of course, depending on the size of yarn you use, it'll be, you know, different size. And so we're going to do 4 rounds, and I'll show you how to sew this all together and crochet the little trunk at the bottom. When you crochet your granny square, and I'll leave a link for this pattern in the description box below the video. You want to click on the blog post. That'll take you to this pattern, and I'll also leave you a link to all my granny square patterns that I have, my playlist for that. And then of course for the big tree, what we're doing here is we're going to continue and make several more rounds, and I'm just staying with the same color combination, and you can do this with any granny square. And with this particular pattern, the 4th round of the tog granny square is just your regular granny square stitch pattern. So I just carried on for you know, another several rows. I think there's about 7 rows here. And yeah, and that makes a perfect size for either a pillow or a gift bag. So first I'll show you how to sew all this together and make the little tree, and then after that I'll show you how to make this one here. Now as you come around the last round of your granny square, there is a special way to finish this that I like to do. So I show this in this tutorial. So the beginning cluster starts with a chain 2, a double crochet, a chain 2 space, and a set of 3 double crochets. And then as you come around to finish this off, I finished my last cluster and chain 1, and the last double crochet will go into this corner, chain 2 space, to finish off our cluster of the 3 double crochets. And what we're going to do here is you want to cut a tail that is 3 times the diameter of the square, so 3 times, plus about this long for some extra piece of yarn to darn in. And so then you're just going to cut that longer tail, which I've already measured, and you're going to pull that all the way through. So we're going to have quite a bit of yarn here to work with. And then what we'll do is you put your darning needle on, and so you want to prepare the back of your square as well and darn in all your tail ends, which I have already done. And so what we do is we do the invisible finish on this. So here's your chain 1, your chain 2, and then in the top of this stitch here, the third sort of V stitch there, you're going to put your needle in from behind, bring the tail all the way through, and we're creating like an invisible stitch here. And then you're going to come back into that stitch that your yarn is coming out of. There's that V stitch there. You're going to go in between those two and then come out the back of the square. There we go. And see, that makes a nice, neat finish. And then you'll turn it over here, and you want to weave your thread up into this corner here. So I'm going to pick up a stitch from this double crochet and a stitch from this double crochet, and I'm going to weave across up into this corner here. And pulling these yarn through is going to be a bit cumbersome. So now we're at the top corner of the square, and you're going to then fold the wrong sides together and line up this edge like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew into these stitches here, the ones that are facing each other. But we're going to start at the very tip, and you've got this chain 2 here. So I'm going to come in from behind the first chain, the one right on that side of that loop, and then I'm going to just sort of turn this over like this, and then we'll be working this way. And then I'll go into the second chain and then pick up the next stitch right behind that. There. And then you're just going to whip stitch all the way down this one side, and then pick up the next stitch and the next one, and pull that snug, pick up the next stitch and the next one. So you're just going to stitch all the way down, stitching together those top loops there, the ones that are facing each other, and you'll go all the way down to the far end. And I'm not going to record that all because it'll take forever, but you're going to stitch all the way down to here, and including the chain 1 and the chain 2. And so I'll see you down there. All right, as you work your way down the back, as you come to this corner, if you've started this the same way I have, here we are. I've gone into the first chain 1 of this corner, going into the first chain 1 of this corner, picking up the second chain 1 of this corner, and then coming down into the second chain 1 of this corner. But what we'll do is we'll bring this tip up, this corner here, and we've got the chain 1 and chain 2, and you're going to go right into this chain on this side with your stitch. Just like that. And then now we'll just carry on stitching along this side using that same whip stitch. And your tail end's getting a little bit shorter now, so it's not so cumbersome. So just carry on stitching along until you get to this edge here, and I'll see you there. Okay, so I'm just doing the last 2 stitches in that corner. So you can then just bring your needle in behind and sort of just weave it through in behind here. And then where you're going to come out, you'll see this is the corner of 2 clusters of 3 double crochets. And you're going to come out in the very first stitch of the back of those clusters. There's just 1 stitch there. You're going to bring the yarn all the way through, and then you want to tug that back so it's not too tight. And then you're going to take the needle off and bring your crochet hook in. And so then what you're going to do is you put your crochet hook in front of that thread, go under that first loop and pick up a second loop. Sorry, this is a little bit awkward here. There we go, brought the yarn around to that side. And you're going to do a slip stitch. Just bring that through and do a chain 1, chain 2, and chain 3. And then now we're going to work double crochets across here. So you're going to yarn over and you're going to go under 2 of the next stitches there, yarn over, pull the yarn through. You've got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then you're going to do a double crochet into the next stitches. So the best you can, pick up under 2 loops of those, yarn over, pull that through, and work your double crochet. And then do another one, picking up 2 of those loops, yarn over, pull through, and do the double crochet. And then you're going to do a chain 3, and you're going to bring that down into the next 2 stitches and do a slip stitch, going under those 2 loops and through the loop on your hook and pull that through and snug that up. And there is your trunk all done. So we will turn that over, put the thread back on, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a couple little stitches to tie that trunk in. So I'm just going to sort of come through here to just sort of snug that trunk up, and then turn this around, fold this over, and you're going to just work your stitch back up into this corner, and you're going to come through this chain 2 here. It's, there you go, in between there. That's the chain of that corner cluster. And then here we are, we're just back in here, and we're just going to whip stitch this right to the very end. So go ahead and do that, and see you at the end there. Okay, and then I'll just do my last stitch here. And then you just need to weave your tail end into the back here. And because this is an ornament, I don't weave backwards the other way. I just weave the tail end in one direction. And then cut that off. And then turn it around. And you just sort of have to fuss with it a little bit here. And you might want to do a little hand steaming. Let me just pull this out. There we go. And you can just hand press it, or you can do a little hand steamer. And there you go. It's that easy. And these actually crochet up quite quickly. And once you get into the rhythm of it, you can make them really, really quite quickly. Isn't that just so cute? I just love these so much. So next I'll show you how to do the bigger one. So to make the larger square, you're just going to carry on repeating round 4, which is just a regular granny square stitch. But rather than doing that special finish at the end, you are going to just join the round and fasten off. So here I come. This is my last stitch. That was my double, or my chain 2 and double crochet. So going back into that corner stitch to finish this cluster, and then you're just going to go into not the first or second stitch, but the top of that double crochet, going under the 2 stitches there, do a slip stitch, chain 1, and I've already cut my tail, and fasten off just like that. And then you'll carry on doing as many rounds as you want to do until you have the square as big as you like. And then for the very last round, you would finish that off as I showed you with the smaller squares. Now for the large tree, I did do 11 rounds altogether, and the last 7 rounds were just the regular granny square stitch. So you're going to do the exact same thing, sew it together starting at the tip, and in this case just use the lengths of thread that you need of yarn, because cutting a long piece is way too hard to work with. So you're going to sew it along the back seam, and then you want to lay out some buttons that are going to be used for the opening in the back. I just have an assortment of buttons here out of my stash. I don't have any that match perfectly, but I think these will work fine. They're between 11 millimeter and 15 millimeter in size. I have 5 for this size, and you will stitch to this chain 1 space and then fasten off. And then you're going to sew each button on one side of each chain 1 space all the way down. I'm going to do 5 buttons. You could do 6 buttons if you wanted to. And then once you have your last space, then you'll start your yarn in the next chain 1 space down and carry on and stitch this together as we did before. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to crochet the trunk for this tree, because it's going to be a little different than the smaller trees. So go ahead and do that. And I should have mentioned that when you fasten off at this chain 1 space, do a double stitch just to make that nice and secure where the opening is. Sew your buttons on, and then when I sewed this button on, I just brought the tail down to here, and each button I just sort of looped through and then tied a knot in the back and cut the tails, and then worked the yarn down to this chain 1 space here, and then I'm going to start sewing these back together. And again, just do a double stitch when you start again, so that the openings on each end are nice and secure, so because things might get pulled on there. So carry on, and then I'll see you down here. And just one more thing, if you decide to do this as a pillow, then you don't need to do the button pieces. You can actually take those away, sew down here, and then you would make your pillow, and you could fit the pillow in from the bottom here and sew it in. And how you would do the pillow is you would just trace the pillow out in the shape of the tree, the fabric. And you would want to make the pillowcase just a little bit bigger than the tree shape, and then you can stuff it. And if it's a little bit bigger, you'll get a nice stuffed pillow. I do have a tutorial on how to hand stitch a pillow or machine stitch a pillow for a little pin cushion that I made. So I'll link that in the description box below, so you know how to make a little pillow. Of course, you could do a pillow and sneak it in through the buttonhole too, and then that way it could be used either way. And then once you've gotten down to this corner, you can either darn your tail in and fasten off, or you can weave the yarn over and carry on and sew up this piece, because the way we do the trunk is going to be separate. So go ahead and close up this section here. All right, so here's the big tree all sewn together and with the buttons in the back and the opening here. So now we're going to add a trunk on. If you want to add a trunk, I think it would look really good with a trunk. And we're going to do this a little bit differently than the small tree. So we're going to want to make this trunk a little wider than for the smaller trees. So we're going to work into not these front stitches here, but these back ones here. And we're going to do just some rows of single crochet until the trunk is as long as we want. So I'm going to start with a slip knot, and I'm just using this green, this light green color, because that would be the color that would be the trunk, and also it's easier for you to see. So we're going to join on in this, whatever your colors are, you're going to have this center cluster and then a cluster on either side, so whatever that is, and just going into the side loops of the outer cluster, pick up 2 of those loops there. They're a little bit hard to get at, but there we go. Go under two loops, and we're going to join on with a single crochet. So you're going to pull the yarn through, flip your tail over, you'll have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. Then you're going to slide under 2 more loops here. Actually, I'm going to go under all 3 of these. There's 3 there. And do another single crochet. So yarn over, pull through, and do a single crochet. Then coming over to this green cluster here. These are really hard to see because of the color, but there's 2 loops at the base of that cluster. Going to yarn over and oops, and do a single crochet. And then you're going to go over and pick up, there's, let's see, that's there. Okay, so over here. So basically you're just trying to go under 2 loops, and you're going through sort of the side of the loops and doing single crochets. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 single crochets. And as best as you can, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. And there's 5. And 6. And then I'm over into this white cluster, so I'm going to pick up those 3 loops again. There. And come along through there. This first row is kind of hard. 7. And oh, there's 3 loops there still. Okay. So let's go under 3 and 8. So I've done 8 single crochets along the base. So you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're just going to go back and forth with single crochets. So not your turning chain, and go under both loops of the single crochet from the previous row and do a single crochet. And 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So my camera stopped, so I'll just come back to here. I've done 8 single crochets for the second row, chain 1, and turn your work. And then not the turning chain, but the next stitch, you go back and do a row of single crochets, going under both loops of each stitch. I mean, you can change it up if you want. You can do your crochets into your front loop or your back loop. I'm just doing both loops. And so you can crochet along and make your trunk as long as you like. This is 3 rows of single crochet, and I think that it's not quite long enough, so I would do 4 rows for sure. So you can see there. I'll do a chain 1, turn my work, and go back. One thing I'm going to try is I'm actually going to crochet this a bit longer, double it back so that the trunk is more chunky like this is. Otherwise, you can just do another row and fasten off and you're done. So I'll come back and show you what it's like with like 8 rows doubled back. Yes, so doubling up the trunk is a really good idea. So I did a total of 9 rows because the fold kind of takes up a row. So I'm going to then fasten off. So whether you do however many rows you do of the single crochet, once you've done as many as you want, do a chain 1 to fasten off. Now I'm going to cut a longer tail here because I'm going to sew this trunk to into two sides, or double it up, pull that through, and then I'll just zoom out a bit here. All right, so I've got my nice tail end here, and then all you're going to do is you'll just fold that over, and you can do a nice stitch along here, and then stitch the sides closed if you like. That's what I'm going to do. And then you're all done. So I'm not going to show you how to stitch it, just use the same old whip stitch to stitch that up, and then I'll be back for the final reveal. All right, so here we go. We've got the little tiny trees made with embroidery floss and crochet cotton, and then the smaller version of the granny square Christmas tree, and then the big one. And I think this stem turned out really nice, doubling it up like that. It's in proportion to the scale of the size of the bigger tree. And then of course we have the back, we've got the buttons, and they just go right into the chain 1 space. This is how you button that up. And I know my buttons are a little mismatched, but I didn't want to run to the store to get buttons, so that works fine. So again, this can be used as a pillow or as a gift bag, which I think is super, super fun. And so there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.